Hello, this is Andrew Dudich at the Vermilion Regional Air Expo here in Danville for WITY 99.5 and 980. Right now, we're over here in front of the B-25 Mitchell bomber. Please introduce yourself and let me know a little bit about how you got involved with this.
Hi, how you doing? Ed Patrick, Liberty Aviation Museum in Port Clinton, Ohio. I'm the CEO of the museum itself, and we operate a number of different aircraft, one of which is behind us here. It's a TBJ, or a B-25J, built by North American in 1945, and we purchased the aircraft in 2011, and we went through an extensive restoration over a period of 3 years, and we have about $2.5 million invested in the restoration of the aircraft. It was the medium bomber used by the Army Air Corps during World War II. It had a multitudinous role, not only as a bomber but also as a strafer, or what they would call targets of opportunity, where once they dropped their bombs on their way back to their base, if there was a target that they could attack or engage, they would do so with the machine guns on board. And there's 13 machine guns on the aircraft itself. And so it's a pretty powerful aircraft in of itself, and also very maneuverable. Being a medium bomber, it's much faster than the heavy bombers of World War II.
What would an average crew like this be?
The average crew would be about 5 to 6 individuals, and they also overlapped in some of their duties, like the bombardier navigator would normally have the same role. There would be a pilot, a co-pilot for sure. Then you'd have a radio operator, and then gunners that would rotate positions. So everybody pretty much could do all the other roles on the aircraft itself, with the exception of the 2 pilots. They normally didn't have extra pilots on board, so you had to hope that those 2 pilots could bring you back safely.
Do you know what kind of range this aircraft would have?
These airplanes normally didn't have drop tanks, but they probably had a range of 12 to 1,500 miles, and it depended upon, again, their bomb load, how much fuel they would take on board. These aircraft were primarily used in the Pacific and also in the Mediterranean. Some were used in Europe, Western Europe, of which this aircraft is actually painted up in a paint scheme to represent a Western European theater of operations by the Army Air Corps.
Do you know where this particular model was retrieved from for restoration?
Basically, after the war, it did serve for some time with the Army Air Forces as a training aircraft for bombardiers and navigators. And it served through the 50s. After that period of time, it was then sold off surplus into the civilian market. Most warbirds, though, were scrapped, actually. Once their usefulness was reached, they were scrapped. But in some cases, aircraft were also sold off into the private market. This aircraft then was converted to a civilian, what they call a civilian or a corporate commuter. And all of the armament was taken off, the bomb bay doors were sealed up, and an executive interior was put in. And during successive ownership over the years, it was owned, we know it's been owned by a lumber yard, it was owned by a fish company, and then over the years, as these aircraft became fewer in number, more and more people started to get these old warbirds and start to restore them back to their original condition. And it went through some other ownerships too. It was known as the Devil Made Me Do It, was one of the nose arts on it. The latest owner, it was called Martha Jean, and it was a fellow named Dave Wheaton in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's the individual that we purchased the aircraft from. And in our aircraft, then it evolved into this aircraft here. We restored it to this condition, and it's in pretty pristine condition. It's in perfect operating condition. And a lot of people even ask us, does the airplane did you actually fly it to the air show? And did you truck it here? And I said, no, we actually flew it here, and you'll get to see it fly at the air show as well.
Tell me a little bit more about the Liberty Aviation Museum.
We're located in Port Clinton, Ohio. It's in the western basin of the Lake Erie. A lot of people as far as where that is actually located, we're about 15 minutes west of the Cedar Point Amusement Park up in Ohio. And a lot of people go there in the summer to spend some weekends. So we're at the Erie-Ottawa International Airport in Port Clinton, Ohio. And we've been there since 1991, but we didn't break ground on the facility until 2011. But we've got 2 large facilities there, about 85,000 square feet under roof. and we have about a dozen aircraft there, and we also have quite a few military vehicles, civilian vehicles. And we even own a 1950s diner, it's all stainless steel diner that operates year-round. It's actually one of our operating artifacts, but you can have breakfast, lunch, or dinner there 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's a pretty unique experience, too.
And if people are wanting to find more information out about the bomber or the museum, how do they do that?
You can go online. We have a Facebook page. We also do Twitter and all the other social media. We also have a website. It's www.libertyaviationmuseum.org, and you can go on there. And we have it's a really good website with a lot of information on it and current events, photographs of many of the items that we have on display at the museum.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Patrick. This has been Andrew Dudich for WITY at the Vermilion Regional Air Expo 2017.